Hey everybody, this is Off Leash with Eric Prince. I'm Mark Serrano. A new development in the war in Israel has just unfolded. This is now a ground invasion that's taking place in southern Lebanon. The IDF apparently has crossed into Lebanon at the panhandle of Israel's Galilee region, which was Israel's northernmost town, Metula, until the capture and annexation of the Golan Heights. But Eric, this just took place just within hours of our speaking today. Let me just quote a couple of things here to you and get your reaction. The ground invasion began exactly 2 weeks after Israel's Security Cabinet decided to adopt a new war goal, namely the safe return of Israel's northern residents to the homes from which they were evacuated when Hezbollah opened fire in October. Now, let's remember, in just the last 2 weeks, and we cover this extensively here on Off Leash, Israel, of course, executed this tremendous attack on Hezbollah terrorists, the pagers, the walkie-talkies, taking out the top leadership of Hezbollah. Now, it appears like the IDF is moving ahead on the ground. Can you give us sort of a lay of the land and what's really going on?
Well, what we think is going on is the reason there's like 70,000 Israelis evacuated from living in the north because they were constantly receiving harassment fire, rockets coming across the border from Lebanese Hezbollah positions. Now, and also because of the Syrian civil war, there was a lot of Shia party factions, even some Lebanese Hezbollah that had moved around to the Syrian side, and even some Afghan Shia that they've hired as mercenary forces on the Syrian border, further encircling Israel. So they are trying to certainly clean out the ability for these Iranian proxies to fire rockets, loitering munitions, etc., and driving a huge part of the north of Israel away from the border. I don't see them doing a massive full-in ground assault. I think they'll try to pick it apart and destroy their supply locations with aerial strikes. The amount of casualties they would sustain with a massive ground offensive would be very, very difficult. The last time they did that, in 2006, it did not go well for the IDF because of the amount of Cornet missiles, RPGs, and a lot of ambush sites in very dense forests with rugged terrain and a lot of tunnels. Made it tough going. The Israelis lost a lot of forces, both vehicles, aircraft, etc. And now you add to the mix of loitering munitions, which is still an ongoing problem, small kamikaze drones. I don't see them having the appetite for that if they think they can get it done from the air.
Yeah, in fact, you know, you're exactly right. The IDF issued a statement, Eric, where they said that they began limited, localized, and targeted ground raids based on precise intelligence against Hezbollah terrorist targets and infrastructure in southern Lebanon. So they go out of their way to indicate that this is very limited, very targeted, and it's basically looking to neutralize the offensive capabilities of Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon, correct?
That is correct. I mean, they've clearly done a massive decapitation effort between the pagers, the walkie-talkies, and the bunker bombing. I heard that they hit Nasrallah's bunker with 80-some bombs. So literally pancaked upon pancaked the building over top of it and all the multi-layers of bunkered locations underneath that building in Harat Hareik. So they did that with a thoroughness that definitely sends a message. But they still have more rocket locations, more missile locations, et cetera, that can still cause significant problems. I think the IDF wants to escalate this as much as possible and maybe even draw the U.S. into it. That is definitely not in our interest as the United States. We do not need to get involved in another Middle East war, and especially in light of real damage that America sustained just this last weekend with massive flooding. You have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people without power, cut off, roads annihilated, no potable water, no energy left, and to have just sent $8 billion to Ukraine and another $8 billion to Israel, that does not sit well with me, or does not sit well with, I think, most tax-paying Americans. Not our problem, and we should not keep getting dragged back into the Middle East.
Sure, and you can go back to the response from George Bush to Hurricane Katrina, and how it was pilloried by the media, and here we seem to have a caretaker president who doesn't know which way down the hallway to the bathroom, and it seems like a very, very weak response to this crisis in the Southeast United States. Devastating crisis, and you're right. After all this money has gone to Ukraine and elsewhere. And just to sort of cap this point.
Well, here's the thing: we sent
Yeah,
we sent $8 billion to Israel. There's 7 million people in Israel, so we need to send $1,000 to each of their citizens. Come on, we didn't send it to their
yeah,
citizens, but and for the argument that says, well, it just goes to U.S. defense contractors. Again, enough. We don't have the money ourselves as America. If it's going to go anywhere, it should at least go to citizens that have their lives upended and ruined. Our citizens first, not other
yeah,
citizens.
yeah. Well, and Congress is, the members of Congress are campaigning now, obviously, 5 weeks out from Election Day, and there's talk of them coming back to pass an emergency resolution, emergency measure, for more money for the people in the Southeast U.S. But you're right. This is how our priorities have been so screwed up and twisted and backwards all along. Just to cap this point with the IDF, they made it very, very clear. The goal of the war is not to occupy southern Lebanon or to establish a security zone, but simply to remove Hezbollah bases and positions from which terrorists have been firing on Israeli citizens. You mentioned 2006. There is some reference to this being a third Lebanon war with Israel. The first was in 1982. I'm just going to go back and touch on some history here, if I may. When Israel invaded southern Lebanon to remove Palestinian guerrillas who had shelled Israeli communities. Israel won the war, but went astray when it continued on to Beirut, tried to install a friendly government in Lebanon. And then, of course, again in 2006, Hezbollah kidnapped and killed several Israeli soldiers, and Israel hit Hezbollah hard. But ground forces, as you had indicated, have been focused on responding to the threat of the second Intifada, and they were ill-prepared and under-equipped. So there's history here, 82, 2006, and now, it's been a long time, but they're back again. But again, each time it seems as if this is a response to an aggressive action on the part of Hezbollah, and Israel's got to neutralize these threats.
Well, they have an extremely unfriendly neighbor, and because of the kind of the completion of the Shia Crescent that ties Lebanon all the way to Iran via Iraq, via Iranian controlled or dominated terrain in Iraq, they can truck in tens of thousands of components for missiles, mortars, whatever, all the things to shoot at Israel. My suggestion to the IDF would be what they should have done is stimulated the Lebanese armed forces, because the Lebanese armed forces, you have Hezbollah, which was the major military power in Lebanon. The Lebanese armed forces, relative to them, have been underprepared, unequipped, unmotivated, and definitely the weaker member of the security apparatus there. This would have been an appropriate use of a private military company to go in a few months ago and start stimulating capability of the Lebanese armed forces, giving them the leadership, intelligence, communications, medical, weapons expertise, some modern ability to communicate and deliver precision strikes with drones, and use the Lebanese armed forces as the means to clean up the rest of the Hezbollah pockets. A lot of the heavy lifting would have been done with Israeli airstrikes, hitting their big weapons concentrations. But if they timed that and coordinated that with the Lebanese armed forces, because I don't think the Maronites, the Christians, the Sunnis, the Druze in Lebanon, I don't think they're happy with Hezbollah being the major military power in their country. And so I think it could have been effectively an effective Lebanese solution, because this will never work. If Israel just tries to come in and stomp on Hezbollah and kill them all, they will absolutely regenerate. And 5 years from now, they'll be left with the same problem again. But if they can reduce Hezbollah from being the military power in Lebanon to just being a political party, no problem with being a political party, but there should be one Lebanese armed force, not two. So I think it's a missed opportunity. Those options were suggested to them. And again, very conventional generals choose to not go, I would say, with a time-tested option for how to solve this.
Yeah, so hindsight obviously is very convenient looking at Netanyahu's moves and the actions of the IDF, where they did the pager attacks, the walkie-talkie attacks, then they decimated the leadership of Hezbollah, and then clearly this is part of a broader strategy to neutralize the threat coming from southern Lebanon. Let's get into sort of Netanyahu's positioning and his thinking here. Do you think there's another stage that's planned ahead of this or after this? And hasn't this sort of changed the entire dynamic in the Middle East?
Well, yeah, I mean, they certainly did a lobotomy on the command structure of Hezbollah. That will take a while for them to regrow it. In fact, even the guy that was named to replace Hezbollah, they whacked him too. But that being said, until it's a Lebanese solution with the Lebanese armed forces that will agree to be the counterparty to Israel, Israel's never going to be able to argue or negotiate or have any kind of peaceful resolution until there is one Lebanese government, not two. One Lebanese armed force, not two. And I don't think the Israelis can or should or be able to extinct all the Lebanese Shia. So they have to figure out a way to live with them and live with them as a political party, not as a military force. And they get them to be a political party only by reinforcing the Lebanese armed forces, which consists of Sunnis and Druze and Christians and Shia. One force, not two.
Yeah. Well, and so if we have a new commander in chief come January, and even starting after President Trump's election in November, that sounds like that would be a core recommendation of yours to try to bring some greater peace. I mean, Lebanon obviously is at a crossroads, and standing between Iran and Israel. It sounds like that would be a major recommendation for yours, is to sort of bring some change to Lebanon that way, especially using private military contractors to achieve it.
Look, the last time the U.S. forces were in there, we had 243 Marines killed, October of 1983. Okay, but done by Lebanese, Shia, Hezbollah with a truck bomb. And I think the same day they killed a couple hundred French as well at a French base, all for the audacity of U.S. forces being there to try to be peacemakers. It was a misguided, wrong-headed attempt. So in no way ever should U.S. forces be back in Lebanon. And the UN peacekeeping forces are absolutely useless. The antibody response, if the Israelis try to put any forces in there, will unite every other Lebanese against them as an invader. So I think the answer is go back to the Lebanese armed forces and make them more effective. And you can do that by using private military contractors. Again, it will take a different paradigm from the Pentagon because they, again, want to run the same playbook. It's what they do, and it's what their brigades worth of lobbyists and grifters do to direct Congress to spend that kind of money. So it's depressing or discouraging to have the same mistakes made ad nauseum. And I suppose that will be the case.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that will be the case until the people making decisions have to suffer the consequences of their bad decisions.
In your view, is Hezbollah equipped at the moment to execute a massive response? I mean, like you said, that their leadership was virtually decapitated in the last 2 weeks.
Yes, but that means that there's a lot of, call it sergeant or staff grade level officers that could go still launch weapons without much command and control, but they can fire them south and fire them towards Israeli settlements, villages, or whatever, if that's what they wanted to do. But in fact, it makes it even more likely that knucklehead behavior can continue because there's no command and control left.
Yeah, but it seems like The entire U.S. policy right now is issuing statements that says, let's show restraint. I mean, that's every new development that takes
Yeah,
place,
look,
you know,
sit in your
what kind of
hands
policy is that?
I think there's an old Roman quote. It says, "Do not quote laws to men holding swords," and that's kind of what the default policy of Biden is.
Yeah.
And the fact is, the U.S. Navy has been defeated in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden because the fact is that waterway is still shut off by the Houthis, and Egypt is still losing $800 million a month. And it's 40% of their GDP is now in the toilet because of restraint. Because Biden's people are quoting laws to men holding swords, and it's laughable and pathetic.
It is the most apt quote I think I've heard in a really long time. Excellent, Eric. Thanks for the analysis. That's it for us today. Don't forget to go to unplugged.com/off-leash for your Unplugged phone today, our great sponsor. And catch us next time here on Off Leash with Eric Prince. I'm Mark Serrano. Thanks for joining us.